Welcome back to another video, joined again by Jason Murphy. For this one, we are reacting to David Benavidez' unanimous decision victory over Oleksandr Gvozdyk last night on the undercard of Tank Davis versus Frank Martin. How are we, Jason?
I'm good, man. You?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Very well. David Benavidez, it wasn't a debut at 175 pounds. Somebody corrected me on this. He's actually fought 175 pounds 8 times in his career, I was told. But essentially, it's his first time in a long time that he's fighting at 175 pounds, and probably his first meaningful fight. Yeah. It's safe to say at 175 pounds last night. I actually predicted beforehand that Benavidez would stop Gvozdyk. I just thought that, with the Beterbiev beat in the retirement, he's came back and he's won 3 fights since, 2 by stoppage. But I just thought at 37, maybe, he wouldn't be able to, almost take the shots. But we'll get into what actually happened before, and I don't want to jump the gun too much here, but I don't know if Benavidez has that really concussive power that people seem to think he has, but we'll maybe get back into that a little bit later on. But what did you think of the fight and Benavidez' performance overall?
I mean, yeah, he did what he needed to do. I mean, I scored it, and as I normally do, I score it as it happens, and then I'll watch it again with the sound off. And I've got 116, 112. I think it was 8-4.
Yeah.
I think Benavidez did what he needed to do, boxed in spurts, tried to sit down on his punches in spurts. But just going back to what you said previously, for me, I don't think he's the monster that they're all painting him out to be.
There's cracks there.
Wrong. He's class. The kid is class. Doesn't fight enough for me. Doesn't put himself in. This is going to sound really stupid, but he doesn't put himself in spots to get the finish. So he doesn't put himself in enough dangerous spots for me. I think he boxes inside himself a little bit reserved. Mm-hmm. He just goes through the motions, jabbing, 1-2, grabbing, spinning off. He boxes safety first, which I know that you don't want to get knocked out or caught, but he very rarely stays in the pocket and there's any sort of vulnerability. If he's in the pocket, he's got his elbows in tight, he's looking for spaces, but I think if he just was a little bit gamer, he'd have stopped him. I think if he put it a little bit more, he'd have stopped him.
Yeah, it was an interesting fight. The patterns, Benavidez came out really hot. He looked really, really sharp early. I was ripping Gvozdyk to the body in the first few rounds. And then, again, we're probably nitpicking a bit here because at the end of the day, you move up to light heavyweight fighting a former, lineal champion, only lost to Beterbiev and was really competitive in that fight until, Beterbiev stopped him in round 10, I think it was. His only career defeat. He's a serious operator, Gvozdyk, but I don't think it was the same guy in there last night than the guy who was fighting Beterbiev and Adonis Stevenson and people like that all them years ago. But I just think that Benavidez maybe realized after 6 rounds, okay, I'm not getting this guy out of there. So I wouldn't say he coasted a little bit, but like the snap or the panache wasn't there as much in the second half of the fight. And then, like you say, that's probably where Gvozdyk was winning his, 4 rounds or whatever it is. He came into the fight a little bit more, but I don't know if it was from him personally. I think it was Benavidez kind of just
slowing down
that off a little bit.
Yeah. For me, I gave Benavidez the first 7 rounds. I didn't see him losing a round. And then I gave Gvozdyk 8, 9, 11 and 12. So, yeah, that sort of runs in theme with what you're saying, that Benavidez maybe realised that he didn't need to put snap into his shots because he was never going to stop him. So he maybe took his foot off the gas, and then that gave his opponent that sort of the incentive to come forward. The fight became a little closer then. As I say, I gave him 8, 9, Benavidez 10, and then he lost the last 2 for me. So it was 8-4. So, yeah, I can see where you get that. He probably realised he wasn't going to get him out because, like you said, he started hot, was hitting him to the body, was catching him under the elbow, didn't even sink him, wobble him. So he possibly realised that he was wasting his time going out balls to the wall. He wasn't going to stop him, so he sort of maybe coasted. Or are we not giving his opponent his flowers and he was he boxed better than Benavidez could handle? Really,
yeah, for sure. Like he definitely wasn't sharp. And Gvozdyk, that was a lot of the talk coming in. He's retired for how long? He's fought nobody since he came back from Beterbiev. But he looked in phenomenal shape on the scales. He clearly took the training camp seriously. And you know, at 37, you know, at the end of the day, Beterbiev's 39, 40. You know, it's not like, you know, he can't still be a live dog and a live contender at 37. So, you know, maybe we are nitpicking, but that's the hype train that David Benavidez kind of has behind him. You know, he's really, you know, hyped in to be a huge sensation, especially in America. So, you know, yeah, you know, for me, I'd give it, he gave himself a 7 out of 10 on the mic afterwards. I think it's probably a fair assessment. You know, got the job done, did what he needed to do. But my initial thoughts afterwards, and because, you know, we spoke before, you know, Turkey's making these fights now. You know, he has made it very abundantly clear that he wants David Benavidez to fight the winner of Bivol and Beterbiev that's happening in October. My initial thoughts straight away were, I don't like either of those fights for David Benavidez. What do you think about that?
And I don't think he's ready for those fights. I think, for me, he needs, I don't know who, but he needs
one more fight. At least, I think he does.
Yeah, definitely needs another fight. If he goes in there with any of them at the minute, I don't think he beats any of them. Not off last night. You know, his opponent was decent, world level, but as you say, not elite. And he might not have coasted. He's going to say he coasted, but he started losing rounds towards the end of the fight. If he does that with any of the, you know, Canelo, Bivol, Beterbiev,
you're not getting your breather, are you? With Canelo, Bivol, or Beterbiev, you're not getting that.
No, you're not. Sorry, I'm running out of charge, so I'm just putting.
No, you're okay. So I'll fill us in a little bit here. For me, you know, this 200 million offer that they were talking about for Canelo and things like that. You know, I think Canelo is probably pricing himself out on that. But if you're Canelo Alvarez, you know, you fancy that work. I believe that Canelo would fancy that fight. So I don't really see why doesn't seem to be a viable option.
I mean, in the build up previously, I'd always thought, you know, Benavidez would give Canelo a better fight at 168.
Oh, for sure.
I think that's where his advantages was come into play. The length. He's a naturally bigger guy. Hits fairly hard. Maybe not. He's not going to knock Canelo out, but I think he hits hard enough at 168 for Canelo to have to mind his P's and Q's. I think if Canelo's now up at 175, I don't see no reason why he wouldn't just want to fight him, shut everybody up, because I think he beats him at 175. I think Canelo holds 175 better than Benavidez does. If you notice, he was a bit flabby around the middle. He didn't look like he'd made the weight in any other way than sort of adding extra weight. I don't think he'd added muscle. He seemed to have added fat to me. I mean, he's not got the best physique in terms of he's not got a ripped 6 or 8 pack, but he just looked really fleshy at the weigh-in, and whereas Canelo fits 175 perfectly.
Yeah, I think, you know, if I'm in Team Benavidez, I think I'm pursuing the Canelo route right now rather than Bivol or Beterbiev. But at the end of the day, if Turkey wants those fights, and, you know, he's going to pay him an absolute fortune, you know, don't get me wrong, you know, Benavidez could still compete in those fights for sure. I just, based off what I saw, you know, he might go out next time out and say fight, you know, I'm trying to think of a contender. You know, he could fight one of our guys. You know, could fight a Yard or a Boazzi. You know, they're fights that could be made. You know, obviously Yard's going through his contractual dispute with Queensbury, and, you know, Boazzi looks like he's fighting Willie Hutchison, doesn't he, on the Wembley card potentially? But you know, just throwing names out there that, you know, are, you know, I don't know what's going on with Callum Smith. You know, is he still?
He's just got married. I don't think he doesn't look like he.
Well, I know. No, after the Beterbiev defeat, he gave a really candid interview and just basically said, if I'm not going to be the best in the world, I'm not sure. And I don't think we've heard too much since from Cat. But, you know, just throwing a couple of names out there that, you know, I'd like to see him in a fight like that with maybe a more prime guy at 175.
You'd like to see him in a fight, really, wouldn't you? We want to see him fight. Not. I'm not saying yesterday was a gimme, because you know, boxing at that level is never a gimme, but I never really worried for him at any point in the.
It was set up for him to look good last night. It was.
And I don't think he did himself any favours. I think
Yeah.
he sort of laboured towards the end, whether he got tired or like you say, he knew he couldn't stop him, so he sort of took his foot off the gas. But for me, he was put up there last night to sort of put on a spectacle and put a statement down and then start screaming and calling for all the big names. He sort of got over the line, not with a whimper. I don't mean to be disrespectful to him, because he's done more in his sleep than I could ever do, but it just didn't. I won't be rushing to watch that fight again, let's put it that way. Whereas I've already watched the other fights from last night. I've already watched them again. I won't be rushing to watch that again, and I don't think any of the top 5 and 6 in the division will be quaking in their boots off the back of that performance.
I think PBC and Benavidez's team particularly picked Gvozdyk because he's been lineal champion at 175 pounds. He's only got one defeat to Artur Beterbiev. He's a good name to test the water in almost. Because he's not the fighter that he once was. He's 37. He's retired. He's been inactive. He's fought 3 lesser fighters on his way back. It's the perfect. He's not as what I'm trying to say essentially is he's not as dangerous as what he once was, but Beterbiev went out there and stopped him when he was that dangerous guy. Realistically, that fight was there to use Gvozdyk's name to propel Benavidez onto those fights. But again, we're probably nitpicking a little bit, but didn't quite, doesn't make you salivate for him fighting Bivol or Beterbiev. That's the key point, I guess.
But then playing devil's avocado, has he held off so that the likes of Canelo, Beterbiev, Bivol think, massive fight.
He's pulled the Usyk Chisora.
Possibly. Has he played possum? And I mean, I don't think so. I really don't think so. But, they could have said, look, you're easily beating this kid. Just take your foot off the gas. Canelo and them now will be thinking, I can get 150, 200 million for an easy night's work. I don't know. For me, it just didn't. He didn't do what I expected him to do. I expected him to go in there, be a bit of a fight for 4 or 5 rounds, find his range, open him up, and just put a beating on him. If he didn't stop him, at least put a whooping on him for the last few rounds. He didn't do that for me yet. He won the first 6 or 7 rounds at a canter, but then took his foot off the gas, and it started to become very close towards the end. I gave him one of the last 5 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have a look. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, one of the last 5. Which at that level, with the fights that you're calling for, with the noise that you're making,
can't have that time off. You cannot have that time off.
No, you've got to stay at a fast pace and try get him out of there. And he didn't do that for me. So I don't think he solidified his position as this monster of 175.
Yeah, no, definitely. He's got a huge amount of hype behind him. At the end of the day, I do feel like he potentially did have another few gears to go up, but for whatever reason, last night they weren't there on show. But it's going to be very interesting. I think categorically we know he's not going to fight Bivol, Beterbiev or Canelo next. I think we can probably safely say that. Canelo's going to handle his business in September against Berlanga, it probably looks like, or he's going to fight his mandatory against William Skull. I think the purse bids are this week or something like that. And then you've got October Beterbiev, so v Bivol. You could probably get him out maybe November, December time, probably again in another light heavyweight fight, and then it'll be Cinco de Mayo against Canelo, or probably one of those big Riyadh season cards against the winner of Bivol Beterbiev, which I assume has probably got a rematch clause attached to it anyway.
You'd think that they'd do that again, but is Beterbiev going to be ready?
Well,
he's got a very serious injury that takes a long time to come back from anybody. But he's 40, is he 39?
Yeah, he's 40 very soon. I think he might be 40 by the time fight night comes round, I believe.
Yeah, it's going to be a long road back. I would be surprised if that fight happens this year. I'm not meaning to be negative, but it's a serious injury for anybody. And at his age, his powers of recovery are not going to be what they are. I mean, he's going to have the best recovery doctors and physio and rehab. But, I'm worried that fight doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. I think, I believe that one happens on October the 12th when we see it. But yeah, plenty of options out there for David Benavidez. Our verdict, we think he's going to have one more at 175. or even maybe 168 before a potential Canelo or Bivol Beterbiev fight. But get involved in the comments. Let us know what you think. What's going to be next for David Benavidez? Gvozdyk maybe look at retirement now. I don't know. He showed enough that he could probably still compete, but you know.
I mean, somebody like one of ours, a Dan Aziz, somebody like that. If Boatsi and Yard don't happen, like you said, Yard's in contract.
That's
Queensbury at the moment over his promotional deal.
He'll probably be brought over as an opponent. Yeah,
possibly,
definitely.
Yeah, because we saw last night he's still got it at world level. He he could give any of the top 10 a decent night's work.
No, he's no easy out.
I think he's still, he's still got the pedigree. Well, he's got the pedigree, and I think he's still got the engine. He didn't look tight. It didn't look any more tired than Benavidez last night.
No, it came on strong, if anything.
The last few rounds.
In the later rounds.
There's definitely fights out there for him, for sure.
For sure. Well, Jason, thanks very much for that. Benavidez, Gvozdyk reaction. That's in the books. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.